Good evening, everybody. Naif Mubarak with Mubarak Law in downtown Orlando. We're going to have a very interesting and hopefully fun Facebook Live for you today. And what we're going to do is give you a very short example of what a marriage-based interview may or may not look like during a USCIS interview. And we're also going to go a step further after I ask our actors some questions and explain the officers' roles, the attorneys' roles, what to expect and what not to expect. And so we do already have a comment. Shamisa, good evening. Thank you for joining us. It's good to see you. And I hope everybody's going to enjoy this live. And before we bring on our guests and actors, I do have some important updates. We posted yesterday about TPS being redesignated for Yemen nationals. Now, temporary protected status, we've heard a lot about this with Haiti and Venezuela. And for those of you who do not know, TPS has certain strict requirements of requiring you to be present in the United States physically and continuously for a certain period. So if you did not qualify before as a Yemeni citizen or Haitian or Venezuelan, they've been redesignated and now you may be eligible. So please be sure to share that information with anybody who you believe may benefit, including those who are, students or pending asylums. TPS is a great benefit that our country provides for people who are coming from countries who, are not in the best state in summary. So very quickly, another quick update and good news for the day is we have received a release for one of our car accident claims. It involved a mom and children, and we're very happy that this is finally going to resolve. With COVID happening last year, it seemed impossible to get certain documents necessary to resolve this case. So thank you to Kelly, who's studying for the bar for her hard work, and Gabriela and Roshni on this case as well. Speaking of Gabriela and Roshni, they are going to be our actors today. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on Attorney Ravani and Miss Gabriela Chacín. Gabriela is our receptionist, and she's calling you, confirming your appointments, and she is making sure I show up for my appointments. So thank you, Gabriela and Attorney Ravani. Thank you guys for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank
you for inviting us.
I'm taking the Oscar home tonight.
I want to see these acting skills, and hopefully there's no overacting and you guys can deliver this. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be Officer Mubarak with USCIS, and I'm going to be conducting your interview today. I'm going to ask you both to raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're going to give today is truthful and correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you can put your hands down. So who's Gabriela, whose application for 485 for adjustment of status is this?
It's Gabriela's.
Gabriela's?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And are you the petitioner, ma'am?
I am the petitioner, correct.
Okay. And have you ever petitioned for anybody before?
No, sir.
Okay, so I've received your file here, and I'm going to go ahead and ask you some questions about the form that you signed, and then also some evidence and maybe some questions for you and your spouse to determine if we have what we need to make a decision on your case. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay. So timeout for those who are joining us. We are doing a mock interview, and this is an actual case that we are filing in the mail tomorrow. We're not going to go over every question, but just so you know, it's critical that you are familiar with the forms that you have signed and sworn to. It's your responsibility to make sure that that information is correct. Review it before you submit it, review it before your interview, and then of course, review it if any changes need to be made or facts have changed since filing. Now, Ms. Ravani, I see that you signed here the I-130. Did you have anybody assist you with this form?
No, just my attorney.
And is that your attorney behind you sitting?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever been married before?
No, this is my first marriage.
Okay, and I am going to remind you both that you are under oath and that marriage fraud is punishable up to 5 years in jail or $10,000 fines. Do you guys both wish to continue?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay, and When I do ask you questions generically about your relationship, you're both welcome to respond. But if I'm asking you specifically, please do not answer for the other person's behalf. Is that understood?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to review the I-130. And here I'm looking at it, and it says you've been married twice. Is that correct?
No. I've never been married. I think this is an error.
Okay. So how did that happen? Is that just an error from your office or maybe a typo?
I think so. Would you be able to change it for me, please?
Yeah, we can change it. So you're sure you've never been married more than once?
I'm sure. Yes.
Okay. And Gabriela, how many times have you been married?
Just this time.
Okay. So once?
Yeah, this is my first marriage.
All right. What is your current address?
250 North Orange Avenue, Suite 950.
For anybody watching, that's not her real home address. That's our office address. And okay. And do you all live together?
Yes,
Yeah.
we do.
And do you rent or own the home?
We rent.
Okay. And is the lease in both parties' names?
Yes.
Correct.
Did you submit that today?
Yes, I have the copy with me.
Okay. Roshni, where was your spouse born?
She was born in Venezuela.
Okay. Do you know her date of birth?
Yes, 03/03/1993.
And Gabriela, do you know Roshni's date of birth?
Yeah, it is 01/01/1990.
Okay. And what is the name of Roshni's parents?
Sam and Samantha Ravani.
And when did your spouse become a U.S. citizen?
She's a legal permanent resident. She's not a U.S. citizen.
Okay. And what is your current status?
I'm an F1. I'm a student.
Okay. And Roshni, where does your spouse go to school?
She goes to UCF.
Okay. And do you know what she is studying?
Yeah, she's doing communications.
Okay. And when did you all get married?
We got married on December 12th, 2020, last year.
I'm just going to do a couple questions for Gabriela on the 485, and then I'm going to have some more questions for you on the bona fides of the marriage. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been denied admission to the United States?
Never.
Have you ever been denied a visa in the United States?
Never.
Have you ever worked in the U.S. without authorization?
Never.
Are you sure? No Uber Eats, no Uber?
Never. Nothing.
Okay. I'm going to remind you that you are under oath, okay?
Okay.
Ms. Ravani, do you know if your spouse has any arrest or criminal history?
No, she doesn't. She has no criminal conviction. No
Okay.
arrest.
And Gabriela, have you ever been deported?
No, never.
Okay. That's enough of the 485. This is an 18-page form with over 60 questions that are yes or no. And so that's basically determining Gabriela's eligibility and to be admitted to the United States. So it's not just going to be based on your relationship. You need to, again, I'm going to emphasize, be very familiar with the forms. Can you all tell me how you met?
We met at a bar in Orlando called Mathers.
Okay, and what happened from there? Love at first sight? Did you start dating? What's the story?
We had a connection right away, and then when we started becoming more friends, we realized that we were at UCF at the same time. We were going to school at the same time, so we kind of see each other on campus all the
Sorry,
time.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to be clear. How did you have a connection if you met at a bar?
We met each other.
So we met at the bar and we started our friendship. We then realized we go to UCF together, so we used to see each other on campus a lot. And then the friendship then turned into relationship, and we started dating. We then moved in together as well, so we lived together for a couple of years. So it was we did like each other the first time, but we didn't get into relationship until we knew each other. We got to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when was that? When did you actually move in together?
I believe it was sometime around 2018.
Yeah, it was 2018, correct.
2018.
Mhm.
And did somebody move in with the other, or did you sign a new lease together?
We signed a new lease.
Okay. And did you provide me with all of your leases of where you all live together?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know, we're not going to be able to make a decision today on your application. I'm going to ask a few more questions and then review the file and then make a determination. If we need any additional information, we'll contact your attorney. So you meet at Mathers, you're friends, you go to UCF, you start dating. I mean, you move in together, but kind of fill me in before you move in together. Where was there a first dates? Who asked the other person out? Right now, I need more details.
I don't think anybody asked each other out. I think it's just relationship just happened. But we used to go to we used to take lunch together. We used to go on dinner dates. We would go to bars in Orlando, somewhere in Winter Park as well, because we both like food and drinks. So we used to hang out a lot, and that's how we the relationship just happened. But he's the one who proposed to me, actually.
It was me. Yeah.
I see here that you don't have any financial evidence together. Do you guys not have any money or financials together?
No, we do have a joint bank account.
Okay. You mentioned that you have a lease. Who pays that?
50-50. We pay half and half.
And what's the amount?
$1,800.
Where are you guys living?
In downtown Orlando, 250 and Orange Avenue.
Okay. And but in the bank accounts, is it shared money from Roshni's income? Is any of that money Gabriela's?
Gabriela has some savings, but most of the money comes from my pay. It comes from my account.
Okay. And did you all?
She's still a student, so she doesn't work, but she has some savings, and her parents help her out as well. That's why it's usually me, because I've graduated and I work now.
Right. And have you met her parents since you bring them up?
Gabriela's parents, no, they're in Venezuela, but we do FaceTime each other.
Yeah.
And Gabriela, does your parents speak English?
My parents speak Spanish.
Okay. And how does Roshni communicate with them?
I usually translate, and she knows some words like "Hola, ¿cómo estás?"
Okay. And did they have any issues with you two getting married?
Not at all.
Okay. All right. So anything else you would like for me to review specifically, or that you believe is important you'd like to share with me today?
We actually have a couple of documents with us. We have our joint bank account. We have our car insurance together.
Is this something you've already submitted, or this is new?
These are the new documents.
Okay. So
and we also filed our joint tax recently as well for this year.
And you filed together jointly?
Yes,
correct.
Okay. So you do understand that this marriage is less than 2 years. If your case is approved, you will be receiving a conditional permanent residency, which would require you to remove conditions. I'll allow your attorney to explain that to you further. We cannot make a decision today. Should we need anything further, we will contact you and your attorney. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, so I know that was short, but a lot of times if our clients provide us with the right evidence and provide us and with all that is true and good in their relationship, sometimes your interviews can go that quickly. And the officers, I want to talk about the officers now. So, and you saw, I asked some questions about the form, some questions about the petition, and then some questions about the relationship. Most interviews, I would say, probably last 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 45. A lot of times you're waiting in the lobby longer than you're waiting for the interview. They are backlogged. They are doing their best to get caught up. COVID has affected everybody. Okay, so that being said, the officers are human beings, right? The officers sometimes have good days, sometimes have bad days, and it's their job and their duty to find out the truth. So it's really important that we do not become hostile or resentful because the officer is simply doing their job. Now, you can answer the questions, and that's the benefit of having an attorney there, and we'll talk about the attorney's role, but the officer is basically there to determine, is this a real relationship? And are you telling the truth? And they look at your history, your background, your answers, your body language, and the evidence you provided so they can make this determination. Roshni, what else would you like to add about the officer's role at these interviews?
I think, sometimes we also get asked these questions that why are the interviews necessary? I have all the documents, I've submitted all the documents. Why should I go to the interview? But I think this is what I believe, that the USCIS officers, as well as us as an attorney, we are the gatekeepers. You are getting an immigration benefit. It is their officer's job. They're doing their job to make sure that the benefit is going to the right person. There have been good marriages and there are bad marriages. We hear, as attorneys, we hear about marriage fraud all these times. We read case laws on it. So I think that the officers are doing a great job. We go to USCIS. You've been to numerous USCIS interviews. I've been to I think I've been to 8 USCIS interviews, and I think they're doing a great job. They're being very fair, reasonable. They're asking the right questions.
Right. And as you raised a very good point, Roshni, there's marriage fraud, and that's kind of led the government to spend the resources on to vet out marriage fraud. But there's also sometimes bad officers. We're not here to say anybody's perfect, but when you're looking at the large picture, for the most part, my experiences have generally been overly positive. And as long as everybody understands the role in each person, we're there to represent our clients and to provide our clients truth and to clarify any discrepancies. The officer is there is to ask questions and verify the evidence we are making. So as long as everybody is respectful for their jobs, hopefully the case can be resolved, fairly quickly. Sometimes people are nervous. Roshni and Gabriela, English is not their first language for both of them. You might get an officer, English is not their first language either. A lot of misinterpretations can happen when there's 3 people who believe the word dating might mean something differently. So it's really important that you pay attention to the cues, and sometimes it might require a request for evidence.
And so I think interview is actually a good way to clear that misunderstanding,
Right. Yeah, and we're going to talk about attorney's role, some things I want to mention, but here we have some questions. Shami says, K1 interview, of course, minus the petitioner. So actually, K1 is a fiancé visa. Thank you, Shamiza, for the question. When somebody arrives in the United States as a K1, they will then have 90 days to marry and then apply for adjustment of status. And there will be an interview similar to this for the last leg of the K1 fiancé visa process. At the consulate, yes, there's going to be more questions prior to the individual being receiving the visa about the relationship. Then there's another question here. Is it always just up to the officer to make that decision? I don't know the ins and outs of USCIS's policies. I do know that I was the liaison for the last 2 years, and our Orlando field office and even Tampa, Jacksonville, they typically run any denials past a supervisor. Or even, I think for many citizenship cases, approvals for any cases that are that. Depending on the level of the officer's experience will determine whether or not they have the sole ability to make that decision. Now, of course, that doesn't mean we can't appeal, or usually a request for evidence or what's called a notice of intent to deny. Those are still things that you can overcome if your interview went south, if it went sour, just like somebody woke up, they were sick, and the officer was in a bad mood, there was rain, there was traffic, nobody understood everything, things was just a disaster interview. You could overcome from that. You can come back, especially if you have a bona fide relationship. There's nothing to hide, right? And we will fight tooth and nail for our bona fide marriage cases. And we mentioned that sometimes you get bad officers, and that's the benefit of having an attorney there, because now we're going to go ahead and segue to the attorney's role. And you need to know what our job is as attorneys with USCIS interviews. And Roshni, do you do opening statements at your at your interviews?
Not at all, no. I think sometimes, and I we like there was one client who's saying, "Why don't you answer that question for me?" And we can't answer the question. We can't say what is your full name. It is your test. You have to give your test. We are there to facilitate the whole interview process. We are there to if there is any inappropriate legal question or if there is anything missing. If there is a criminal conviction, if the officer doesn't have any documents, we are there to facilitate it. We cannot answer the question on your behalf.
Right. And, a lot of times I tell clients, sometimes we're there as a referee, just sitting there watching. Sometimes we're there to make you feel more comfortable. And sometimes we're there for legal complex issues. In this particular case, Roshni's a green card holder. Gabriela is applying for adjustment of status. The only way that would work is if the visa is current and available at the time of filing, and Gabriela was in status at the time of filing. So sometimes an officer might be like, "Oh, there's no visa bulletin," and you might have to. The attorney at that point will have a discussion. Another thing I see, and I'm sure Gabriela even gets this on the phone. Can you send me a list of questions that they're going to ask me? Roshni, can we send our clients a list of questions? Do we even have a list of questions?
We don't. No, it's always a case by case basis. There's no set questions. Everybody's relationship is different. Everybody's case is different. Everybody gets a different officer as well. Some officers like to know more about the clients. Some officers just want basic biographic questions. So there is no set questions, and I have not been to the interviews where each and every officer asks the same questions. So no, we do not have set questions.
But you don't want to go in there like robots. I mean, what relationship shows people robotically answering questions? And even in our mock interview, you saw that based on their responses, the questions led another way. Roshni mentioned FaceTiming, but I knew her parents were Gabriela's parents in Venezuela, so it led the question to do they speak Spanish? So there's not really a set list of questions that we give to people because your story and your facts. You just sometimes maybe need a refresher to be familiarized with it, and don't be worried if your life is complicated or if it's complicated, like Facebook status, if they still do that. It's complicated. Life is complicated. Okay. And there's no such thing as that fairy tale bona fide marriage. And maybe some officers believe that, but that's not the case, right? Life can be messy. And I'm of the belief if you're forthcoming with that, especially with the guidance of an attorney, then you won't have anything to worry about. Of course, every case is different. This is not legal advice. I'm begging you to seek a consultation before you enter this process. The government fees are not cheap. You're looking at $1,800 for a marriage petition adjustment of status. If you do not file properly, the case can be denied. You lose the money. Somebody out of status can end up in removal proceedings. This is very serious matter. And with that being said, I want our clients to take it serious, and for you to come prepared, familiar with your forms, familiar with your history, and, even addressed appropriately, right? This is something that you should take serious, and many people consider an honor to become a permanent resident of the U.S. or to become a citizen. So, it should reflect that in your demeanor and to the officer and to the office. Roshni, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to add that whenever we are waiting for the interview with the client outside in that USCIS office, clients tell us we are nervous, and I always tell them the same thing: that why are you nervous? Do you have something to hide? Is your relationship not genuine? If your relationship is genuine, you don't need to be nervous about anything. This is just question and answers, and that's it. You're not making up any stories. So only people, or only those marriages that they have to make up stories, they have to remember every single bit of it. That's the case that they would need to be worried about. Other than that, our clients should be fine.
Right. And it is normal to be nervous. I mean, it's not easy to talk about your relationship to a complete stranger who has the decision of whether or not they're going to grant your case. There's a pressure element there, right? Mm-hmm. And some just like tips I tell people, talk very slowly in your mind, but because you're nervous, it will come out at a decent speed and the officer will understand you. If you come out just Speedy Gonzalez speaking very fast, and or you are being very short with your answers, I tell people, talk to the officer like you're at a dinner party and they ask, how did you meet? Share your story. Let people ask questions. Like, it doesn't need to be this question answer deposition style. And really, I think a lot of times the relationships speak for themselves, and the demeanor and the evidence and the testimony that you provide goes for it. Now, sometimes we get bad officers who don't ask enough questions. That happens, right? But that's another benefit of an attorney. We overcome and we deal with it.
In my experience, I've all the officers have asked very reasonable questions, so there is nothing to worry about.
Well, I've been doing this close to 12 years. We've had some moments, right? But usually there's a reason for it that the officer is going. But our job is to make sure that the questions are appropriate. And by appropriate, we mean, are they in the scope of the application or the benefit being sought? So it's important. If you have any kind of complicated immigration history, please at least seek the guidance of an attorney. Now, something you should know, a lot of times officers, you see, I was, when I was being Officer Mubarak, I said, you didn't provide me with any financials. That was incorrect, right? And you need to be ready, and your attorney needs to be ready to say, no, we submitted bank statements. But we have to understand these officers get to review the file maybe 5 minutes before they call your name, which is part of the reason why they can't make a decision usually on the spot. And they're not entirely familiar. They're under time constraints to get these cases moving. But that being said, some firms will file their adjustment of status cases with just a marriage certificate. And their plan is, I'll bring evidence to the interview. That's not what we do at our office. And I'm proud of that. And sometimes I could be a little bit annoying with our clients, asking them for more and more evidence. But the idea is to make your life easier the day of the interview. So when the officer opens your file, sees all this wonderful evidence that's legitimate, then you provide more and good testimony. Everybody's life just became easier. When you come to the interview and there's no copies and you just hand it to the officer, guess what? It's going to take that person time to review things, and it just might even put them in a bad starting point if they see that there's no evidence in the file. So these are things that we need to consider when we're putting in cases. Gabriela, thank you for staying with us. It's been a long day. Gabriela's been here since 8 a.m.
Okay.
And so thank you for your participation.
Mm-hmm.
And just a reminder to everybody that this will be on YouTube. If you believe it will be helpful or beneficial for somebody else, let us know. Immigration, car accidents, Mubarak Law, we're here for you. And I'll let them both sign off at the church bells in their language. And if you guys could say goodnight in our amazing languages. If you haven't seen our TikTok video, check it out on YouTube or TikTok of all the wonderful languages we have in our office.
Yeah.
Right.
Buenas noches.
Good night, everybody. Have a good day.